welcome to the Rundown with Dr. Sierra, where we discuss all things running. So today we're talking about 4 injuries that if you are a runner and you've been a runner for some time, I'm sure you have experienced one of these injuries. And if not, kudos to you for taking care of your body and doing what you need to. But we're going to discuss the common top 4 injuries that runners experience. Number 1 is runner's knee. Number 2 is Achilles tendinitis. Number 3, plantar fasciitis. And number 4, shin splints. Any of those sound familiar? Well, today we're going to talk about those injuries, and we're going to talk about how you can treat those same exact injuries. We don't want to continue running and keep running into the same problem. We want to fix it and then be done with it. So let's get into it. First up is runner's knee. So it is also known as patellofemoral knee syndrome. It has different names, but syndrome is what we'll go with for today's purposes. So if you have ever had that mild achy pain in the front of your knee, if you've heard that grinding or that clicking noise in the front part of your knee when you're going on walks, when you're running, and you feel and experience any type of pain around that patella, which is that kneecap, it is probably likely that you are experiencing the symptoms of that runner knee or patellofemoral syndrome. So typically it comes from many different reasons, but the most common is because you have those weak quad muscles. It's the muscle at the top of your leg. It is kind of the muscle that gives that support to that kneecap. It gives that knee some stability. So if you have some weakness there, if you're experiencing some tight hamstrings, if you are not wearing the proper shoes while you're running, if your shoes are worn down, that also can play a role into why your knees, are having some pain. If you are doing a lot of repetitive activity, if you are running nonstop, if you are experiencing some overuse with your knee, it is likely that that is the reason why you're experiencing those symptoms and that pain in the knee. So if you're feeling, okay, yes, I'm checking off the list, that sounds like me. What do I do? Well, first things first, you definitely want to make sure that you are strengthening your quad muscles. It's such a big muscle, and especially like I just said, it attaches to that kneecap. You need to make sure that that muscle is strong enough to be able to withstand all the forces that you are putting on that knee when you're running on the concrete, you're pounding your feet into the concrete, and so those that energy, that forces, those are going through your leg. And so if you take your weight, let's say, it is a portion of that each time you're hitting the ground. So you got to think that's a lot of weight that is that your knee has to be able to stabilize while you're running. So I could see how over time, if you're not doing all the things that you need to do, how it can become very uncomfortable for your knee, how it can start to have problems. You want to always make sure that you are stretching your hamstrings prior to going out for a run. I know as a runner, it is just a common thing that runners have tight hamstrings, but you got to make sure that you are doing your dynamic warm-up prior to even going out for your run so that you can get those hamstrings as loose as you possibly can. Now, also you want to pay attention to your shoe wear. Now, we have not had a formal video about our shoe wear, but I promise you it is coming. But for your shoes, you want to make sure that you are wearing shoes that give your feet support. You want to make sure that you are switching your shoes out every 6 to 12 months, depending upon how fast or how long you're running. You want to check the bottom of your shoes to make sure that it is not worn out in a particular area and that you are still having some traction when you're running. And you definitely want to make sure that if you need it for your foot, you want to put some inserts, the proper inserts inside of your shoes to make sure that your feet are comfortable while you're running. You have to think of your lower extremity as a chain. So if your hip or if your knee or your ankle, any part of that chain is out of whack, then that can cause problems throughout that chain. So particularly if your knee is causing problems, you want to look below and you want to look above. If you notice you've been having some hip issues, your hips been feeling a little wonky, pay attention to those signs. Your body is trying to tell you that something is not right. I know we're talking about the knee, but because it all works together, we want to make sure that we're crossing everything as possible and making sure that we're not leaving anything behind. Now, the last thing is that if you are doing that repetitive training with your knee, you're noticing that you've picked up your mileage, you're doing a lot more running than you normally do, you want to make sure that you are incorporating some rest days for yourself. You want to make sure that you are doing some cross training, that you are doing some strength training. That's going to come in where we talked about strengthening those quads. You got to make sure that your calves are strong as well. Your leg has to be able to support you while you're running. You can't put all the stress on one muscle. You have to make sure that all the muscles are nice and strong for you. So next we're talking about Achilles tendinopathy. Now, why is this important? Why does this happen to runners? It happens because if you are not familiar with where your Achilles is, it is a muscle that or tendon that attaches from your heel up into your calf muscles. Now, it is important because it is what helps to control your foot to be able to go up and down. So without that stability from that tendon, your foot would just be wobbling all over the place. Ask anybody who has had an Achilles injury. It is very hard for them to raise up on their toes. It is difficult for them to walk and run because they don't have that attachment. So it just makes it a little bit harder. And they may still be able to run or do the things that they need to do, but it comes with a lot of compensation. Now, why does this happen? This happens because you have that tight Achilles. Again, before you go running or walking, you need to make sure that you are stretching your muscles. Do some type of dynamic activity so these muscles are warmed up and that they're not shocked when you go to run. You don't want your body to be surprised, because when your body's surprised, that's when the injury happens, because your body's like, I don't know how to help you in this situation. We didn't warm up. These muscles are tight, and you make these sudden movements, and it's really hard for your body to kind of bounce back. Now, it's not everybody. Some people may not particularly feel like, oh, I don't need to, do a whole lot of warming up. My body's okay. Everybody is different. But for the mass population, we want to make sure that we are warming up our bodies before we go running. Now, if you have that tight sensation in your Achilles, you definitely want to make sure that you are stretching. You can use your foam roller to kind of roll it out. You can get some heel raises in. You can stand on the side of the curb to stretch those muscles out. And it happens again because it is so tight or because it's very, very weak. So we want to make sure again that we are focusing specifically on those calf muscles. We want to make sure that we're getting those heel raises in. And if you feel like standing or sitting heel raises are super easy for you, incorporate weight. Hold weights in both your hands, or you can do it while you're sitting and put a weight on the end of your knee. You just want to make sure that it is a challenging exercise for you. Anything that you're doing, if it's too easy, you can do a lot of reps, add a little bit of weight, and then decrease the number of reps that you are doing. Again, if you notice that tenderness or swelling around that calf or around that Achilles insertion specifically, then you want to make sure that you are trying to figure out why. Is it because of my shoe wear? Is it because of overuse? What am I doing that is aggravating my Achilles? Why is it so angry when I go to run? I don't want to have an Achilles rupture. That is definitely not what you want to happen. We want injury prevention, so we have to do everything possible to make sure that we prevent that. Now, that may mean that you have to rest. That may mean that you're not able to get all of your runs in as you normally would. However, take some time and make sure that you are treating your body good. You don't want to try and overdo it. That's a part of it, that overuse, thinking that you can just go, 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 go. However, at some point, your body needs a rest. Your body needs a rest break. So you have to listen. Now, one thing that you can do, you can rest. You can use that ice. Sometimes I don't necessarily, recommend or say, oh, this is what you should do. But sometimes NSAIDs are necessary to kind of help decrease that inflammation that you have in that area. So if that's what's necessary for your body, talk to your doctor, get the necessary things that you need so that you can get back to your activity, whether it's running or whatever other sport that you are in. Now, one thing I also want to note, I didn't mention this before with the previous injury that we were talking about, but I just want to say that sometimes with runner's knee, it could be that the person may be overweight. So you may need to think about how you can incorporate losing weight in order to take off some of that stress on the knee. Now, when we're talking about Achilles, it is actually more common in people who have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So we have to make sure that we are looking at the whole entire picture. It's not just, okay, well, I'm a runner and I'm running 5 times a week, but okay, that's great. That's great and very commendable. But what are you eating? What are the things that you are putting into your body? We have to treat our bodies like a temple. So if you are putting garbage and junk into your body on a consistent basis, I'm not saying that, no one should ever eat those things. I am guilty of it as well. It's just, sometimes you have your guilty pleasures of things that you like and your comfort foods. But if you want to be good to your body and you want to make sure that you're not having any injuries, we definitely have to pay closer attention to what we're putting into our bodies, because our bodies are a reflection of what we are putting into our bodies. We treat our body well, then our body can perform and do the things that it needs to do, because we're doing the right things by our body. So just make sure that with Achilles tendinopathy, or even runner's knee, that you are just being mindful that, your weight may play a role in some of the injuries that you may be experiencing, especially if it is something that you are experiencing over and over again. Let's take care of that problem. Definitely incorporate the strength training, and then, get back into our routine of running and walking, whatever it is. We definitely just want to make sure that we are preventing injury as best as possible. All right, so next up is plantar fasciitis. Now, if you have been a runner for some time and you've experienced that pain on the bottom part of your foot, you wake up in the morning and you just feel this tight sensation, or you're trying to step down and it's very difficult for you, you have probably been experiencing some form of plantar fasciitis. Now, on the bottom of your foot, you have this fascia. It connects from your heel and it disperses towards your toes. So now if that fascia gets very tight just because of repetitive movements, you're doing a lot more walking, a change in maybe your shoe wear, if you are wearing dress shoes or heels for a long period of time and then you switch up and start wearing maybe your tennis shoes, you may feel some difference in the bottom portion of your foot. Why is that? Your foot was accustomed in the dress shoes, and then now you may put it on a flatter surface. Sometimes it does happen because of the wrong type of shoe wear. Again, we talked about this earlier about having the proper inserts, or, if you have poor mechanics in your foot, so if you have a flat foot or if you have a very high arch, sometimes those can cause that plantar fascia because there's extra stress on the fascia, especially if you are a runner, if you are a walker, you get a lot of mileage in throughout the week. That stress on that plantar fascia is very hard. So what do we do if that is what we're experiencing? One, you definitely want to invest in good shoes. You want to make sure that your shoes are supportive for whatever type of foot you may have, because everyone is different. You have to get it specifically for your foot, whether that be inserts, whether that be something that can kind of like an orthotic that can help support the arch, whether it is an orthotic that can kind of help with that flat foot. Whatever it is for your situation, you want to make sure that you address that and get the correct type of insert, orthotic, and shoe as needed. Now, also, one thing, if your foot just feels very inflamed, you could definitely get a frozen water bottle and kind of roll it on the bottom of your foot to help with some of that pain that you may be feeling. And I know that sometimes it is not something that happens throughout the entire day. It's just that initial in the morning when you're getting ready to step out of the bed and you start to feel that pain. So just be mindful of when you may be having it, and definitely try to use the water bottle and see if that doesn't give you some relief. Now, because it's so tight, we want to make sure that we are focusing on those foot intrinsic muscles. Those are the ones that helps us to be able to move and have comfort in our foot. So because of that, you want to try and do some toe yoga. Now, toe yoga is super hard. It sounds weird and it's a little bit creepy. However, if you take your big toe, push it down into the ground, and then raise your other toes and kind of do vice versa, you're stretching out that fascia on the bottom part of your foot. Now, you definitely want to do that. It gets those muscles and the blood flow moving on the bottom part of your foot. And I think that over time you will see that because those muscles are being used on purpose more actively, it won't be such a shock when you go to use them for when you're running. So definitely take some time out and spend getting those foot intrinsic muscles a little bit stronger to prepare yourself for all the activity that you have ahead. So last but not least are shin splints. Those are also known as medial tibial stress syndrome. What is that? Well, in the front of your leg, you have your shin bone. And in there, you have some muscles, and those are the muscles that you're using while you're running. So what happens is when you're running, because that area is super stressed out, you get these little micro tears in those muscles. And so as you go to run, it is super painful because those muscles are experiencing those micro tears, and it just becomes difficult for you to run, difficult for you to perform activity. Well, how did I get that, and why does that happen? If you haven't noticed, the common theme, one is because of repetitive activity and overuse, and then also because of shoe wear. So this one is no different. You need to make sure that your shoe wear and shoe game is together if you are a runner, if you plan on doing it each and every week, and if you plan on getting a good number of miles, you need to invest in good shoes. Now, you also need to make sure that you are not a person who is going from running 0 miles a week to, oh, I want to run 50 miles a week. Make sure you are gradually working your way back into it if you have not been running for some time. But if you are a person who has been running for a while, and that is the number, I'm just using 50 as an example. If you are getting 50 miles in per week, then what you need to make sure that you're doing is incorporating a rest day. Now with shin splints, it is definitely important for you to rest. However you choose to do that, if you are a person who is unable to sit still and you feel like you need to get in some type of activity, this is where your cross training comes in, and this is where your strength training comes in. Again, you want to make sure that those muscles in the front of your leg are strong, because you need strong muscles in order to run. That is just the bottom line. Your muscles have to be strong. Now, if you're unable to run, this is where you can incorporate some swimming to work on some endurance. You can do some cycling. You want to just make sure that you are moving your body, but not putting that extra stress on those shin muscles so that they're able to rest and so that you can come back stronger. In the meantime, you definitely want to make sure that you are strengthening them, but not in a way where they require your whole entire body weight. You can do exercises in sitting, you can do exercises in standing, but try to make sure that you are not doing too much where you're still stressing those muscles and it becomes uncomfortable. You have to make sure that you are listening to your body. That is first and foremost. Then you also have to make sure that you are not pushing yourself too hard. I understand maybe if you have a race coming up or if you have a goal just for yourself. I think that's awesome, but I think you also have to listen to your body. If your body is telling you to rest, rest. And don't ignore the signs. I say this all the time that we want to prevent injury. So if you have been noticing on your runs, you're starting to have that little bit of pain, but you're like, I just want to get these few last miles in, and you don't address the situation in the beginning, then it only makes it worse later on. So make sure that you're listening to your body so that we can have injury prevention. That is our goal. That is our main focus, to make sure that we do not have any injuries. So I hope that everyone thoroughly enjoyed this video. These are the top 4 running injuries out there. If you are a runner, I'm sure you've experienced them at some point, but let's try to make sure that we don't ever have to experience them again. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And we will see you next time on The Rundown with Dr. Sierra. Happy running!